Hey everyone, hi, Deepak Bhutra here again. And this is another edition of Sales Uncharted. Now, this time, I assure you, I'm really thinking you guys are going to enjoy this session. I actually bumped into Stephan Lahn, and Stefan has got this amazing background. I really won't get into too much of it, but I can tell you one thing. He is the managing partner and co founder of Slam Commercial Partners. He does what I thought was really interesting. He's a commercial due diligence specialist, long mouthful, right? He helps private equity and venture capital investors understand whether a company's revenue engine is real or simply a well-maintained illusion. So investors use him to understand what's under the bonnet. Is that or the lid or the engine, right? That's how I would put it. Stefan is joining us because not of that background. I really like something about his background. One, he's written a book, and I know that the value of getting an audience to hear about an upcoming book is very powerful. And I want Stefan to get an opportunity on my platform to tell B2B sellers what his book is about, what is he writing about. He's also, I would say, someone with a tremendous multicultural, multi-geographical background. The man has worked in sales in Europe, United States, India, and China. Him and I, when we were exchanging notes, I was delighted to know he spent some time in India. We were then talking about culture, mannerisms, and so on. Uh, Today, though, I would like to focus on what's happening with his book. Why did he write the book? Sales is not rocket science, but a simple art, right? And I think this is really interesting. He's taken a book. I looked at the book, and Stefan, I think you have a copy of it with you, right? If you could just keep waving it in the background, I'd like the audience to
Yeah, I
see
have
that.
something here. It's actually the
Absolutely.
test copy, the test print
The test, yes, yes,
from
yes.
Amazon. So
It this is the copy you cannot sell. It's a sample, but it's a
no,
proof for
it's
the
simple.
proof. This is,
Exactly.
and it is so nice, Stefan, when you get to touch the proof because all the effort, all the work that you put together finally comes alive. So
Thank you.
congratulations on that. I know that feeling. I
Thank you,
really am
Deepak.
looking forward to this conversation. Stefan, let me start off, right? What I really wanted to understand from you is that given the fact that you worked around the world, right? Tell me a bit more about what exactly do you do today, and how would
Yeah.
you describe your work to a B2B seller who's listening right now? Because my listeners are typical B2B sellers who are selling, working very hard. Why should they be listening to you, sir? Give me some background.
Yeah. At the moment, I do want two things. Actually, free with the book. You can take free. So one is with the business partner I built up Slam, so the commercial diligence. We are also fractional CCOs for a startup in San Diego. Building it up at the moment is AI guardrails and red teaming called EtherLab. And then with Slam, we do actually two parts. You mentioned one already with PEs and venture capitalists, but also angel investors, family office, all that stuff. Before they invest, commercial due diligence. So really opening the hood. And then
Yeah,
quantitative, qualitative, meaning quantitative everything, forensic, CRM system, digging out the dead bodies.
right.
But also looking at the organization or the sales organization, the comms
Yeah,
plans or bonus plans, and so on. But also do interviews with the sales leader, with the founder, with customers, with prospects, with the sales engine, and put it in a report that just gives red, yellow, and green out. So, and then it's literally up to the investor. Do they want to go for that one? Yes, no. If yes, do they want us to change it afterwards? So that's one stream on that one. But we also realized with talking with a lot of that area that actually is also good for CEOs. There's a lot of companies out there where the
That makes
CEO
sense.
is not happy with their sales engine. And of course, the sales director is permanently saying something, but it doesn't show in the results. So there's a discrepancy.
Correct.
So
Yes,
CEOs literally call us in. Of course, the sales directors or VP sales or however they are called, they're not happy about it. But at the end, only like this comes the truth out. So we do exactly the same and offer exactly the same service afterwards.
makes sense.
So that's
I
pretty much on that part. And for a seller is at the end, I've done everything. I've done all the mistakes in my over 20 years.
yes,
I literally didn't hit target. I was on the PIP, on
yes.
the
Our
support
favorite PIP,
line.
right? Performance
Yeah,
improvement plan.
absolutely.
Yes,
I was there, and everything that is in my book, I've learned myself. I didn't have a training. I mean, I had trainings, but not on any sales methodology, nothing. So I've done it as a sales leader. I hired wrong. where I think, oh my God, why did I hire that? So I was in a room. I carried the quotas. That is just, I've done it. Dot.
So we've got the credentials, we got the angst, we are
Hmm?
sympathetic that you're on a pip, excited for you.
Yeah,
Let's pivot to the book because you mentioned the book. And I
yeah.
really want to talk about the book because I think Stefan is critical. A book is actually something that I really enjoy talking about because you've taken all the essence of Stefan and put it into something. Your
Hmm.
book is launching at the end of June. When will it be available online on Amazon? If I want to go buy it, when will it be available, Stefan?
Oh, you can now pre-order already.
Ah,
It's
bravo.
it's already there for pre-order.
But I
It's
only saw the Kindle version. Do you have the hard copy ready for pre-order also?
It should be
Ex-
available as well. Otherwise,
Perfect. We'll,
it will be latest on the 30th. There was some hiccups with the ISBN number, so
yes,
there will
there's
be a paperback
always something.
as well. Yeah, I mean, I have it already, so
Perfect.
it's all good. Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. And I think I know the answer based on the way you introduced yourself, right?
Hmm.
You have a title, you thought of the title, Rocket Science versus Art, right? But
Yeah.
what inspired you to write the book? What was going through your mind?
Yeah, there's actually different reasons. One, and now you probably will laugh. It was on my bucket list. I always wanted to write
Ah,
a book
yes, yes,
for
yes.
donkey years. I wanted to write a book, but I was not so much motivated. But over the years, you try to read sales books left, right, and center, like you do, like everybody. But what I couldn't find was a sales book from A to Z that covers the whole process. I couldn't find it. I, if you have something recommended, please.
Well,
So
I
that,
can. I'm a Sandler certified, so I'm going to say Sandler. But I
here we are.
yeah, there
That's
you
okay.
go. Exactly, right? Yeah, yeah. No,
So
but sorry, keep going.
yeah, so but I really couldn't find anything A to Z and those little tips and tricks that only somebody that was in a room could give you.
Yeah.
And then I was in an assignment with my previous client where I sorted out the European sales organization, the Indian and Chinese one. And the global sales director came to me every time when I see you, every single conversation you have with my boss, with me, with my salespeople, with my sales managers, you seem to be coaching. Can't I get a handbook of this? And I thought that was literally the moment. So about two and a half
The
years
seed.
ago, that was the moment with all that one that I wanted to write a book, and that there was none of this full lot out there. And then he asked me for a handbook. That was for me the starting point two and a half years
Stefan,
ago.
can I? You know what's really funny? I was about to ask you, Stefan, how long did it take for you to go from that conversation to the book? You just answered it 2.5 years,
Two,
right?
yeah.
So, if I understand you, boss, right, we have a book, and I must tell you, I actually went through the ebook that you sent to me to have a look at, right?
Hmm.
And as I was reading it, Stefan, there were a couple of things hitting me. One is, I think you're spot on. I was expecting a book either that's going to be very dense in just tactic, or going a book that's going to be very flowery on, and you need to have mental resilience. And this is how you get mental resilience. So as I read the book, I actually said to myself, wait. I like this guy. He's actually found tremendous balance. The way I looked at the book was Stefan as follows. If I am a salesperson who has just entered the sales world, and if I were told by someone, you don't have 3 weeks, 10 weeks to sit in a weekly course to figure the world out.
Mm.
I want you to, in the next 3 hours, get to grips with some of the most fundamental basics that you need to execute your job. I think your book does justice to that. I must be honest with you. One of the really remarkable things I notice in your book, and I just want to share that with you, and I'm not pontificating, I'm just justifying, is
Yeah,
that you speak about principles before tactics.
yeah.
Very interestingly, however, in the principles, you do lift the hood up. In fact, I would argue there were a couple of points in the book where I really felt that you're really trying to dump your knowledge and everything you have as best as you could, and then trying to squeeze it into 200 action-packed, pages. The first revelation, which I really enjoyed, was the fact that you were actually talking about exhibitions. How many sales books can you think of really talk about exhibitions? Whereas you know that exhibitions can be very meaningful for certain products, for certain sectors. Being at an exhibition can deliver maybe 25, 30, 50% of your quota.
Yeah.
Some of the biggest deals come out because some of the biggest people with biggest pain roam around in those corridors wanting a solution, wanting to see what's happening out there. And if you've got a leading cutting edge product just with the present, I thought that was very interesting. And I like that. And I want to just commend you on finding that approach to it.
Mm.
The other thing I liked about is that the principles that you articulated, and I don't want to steal your thunder, and maybe I am. I like them because they're practical. Anyone who reads something immediately knows that, hold on. This is a guy that's carried a briefcase.
Mm. Yeah,
Because there are
exactly.
certain things you say that just tell me, no. This guy has gotten beaten up. He has been mugged at least 3 times with a deal. He thought he had the deal. He comes back 2 days later and the customer says, I'd like to introduce you to our new vendor. I could see that. And I really like the way you were calling, things out. What I want to do is I want to move the ball back to you because this is
Mm.
about you. You wrote and you described this book as an operating system. Now, that's a very big claim, right? But you
Yeah.
build 12 principles. So rather than another sales methodology, which is I build a nice circle and I label things, you speak
Mhm.
about 12. Why are you focusing on principles instead of getting deeper into tactics, right? One of the biggest
Mhm.
selling books in at least America is, 7 ways to break an objection, 150 ways to break a pricing logjam. Why this way?
You just mentioned it. You're literally one of the biggest selling books. One little slice, another little slice, another little slice, and that's
Spot on.
all little slices from the whole sales process. And it's all rightful. They're all great books. Don't get me wrong, but it's a slice there, a slice there, a slice there. You know,
Yeah.
and not
Yeah.
the whole red line. So, but the whole red line, and here comes the tactic versus principles. The principles go in your normal life, okay? Or I start in a different way. I grew up in old East Germany. Okay, we
Yeah.
started. We started. So before the wall came down, in as we call it, dark Germany. Yeah, and I was becoming an ice hockey player, and we were literally training with 5 years olds already 6, 7 times a week. You know, with games as well. So I learned very quickly discipline, consistency, be honest. That was a fundament. And when if I can stay with my ice hockey story, so I move from team to team to team to team. Every
Yeah.
single coach, and this is in football, it is in ice hockey, it's in basketball, they have different tactics. The tactics
Yes.
change per team, but the fundamentals, they don't change. For to be a professional ice hockey player, you need to be a good skater. You need to have guns that are far bigger than mine. You know, you need to be a little bit aggressive.
Yeah.
And you need to become like this. You need to go 4 or 5 times to the gym a week. That is consistency. And you need to also, and here comes the most important thing, you need to understand
The
why you need to do all those things. You need to understand
why, the why.
those things, tactics. You just need to follow, but that is on the basis of an understanding and the fundament why you need to do that. Why do I need to clean my pipeline? Why do I have
The
to
why,
need to
the
have
behaviors. Yeah.
a next step? Why do I sit somebody completely different to change the dynamic in the room? Why do I ask the question? Why do I put the validate? All those things that I have in my book
Yeah.
is a framework that should be taken and can be taken into SaaS sales, into a physical product. You just need to like the cultures, you just need to wrap it around that framework and adapt it. But it only works with principles.
So let
Does
me
that
let
answer your
me
question?
it does. It answers in ample detail, and I get a lot of things that I want to pick up on over there, but I just want to also be very cautious because I really do want to dig into the book and not get distracted with your excellent explanations there. If I were to force you, right, and if you think about the book for 1 second, right, you have dedicated an entire principled active listening, correct, sir? Right?
Yeah.
And here's what I wanted to check with you. I nod my head, but here's the bad news. I nodded my head at all 12 principles.
Hmm.
Stefan, make this easy for me. I'm not going to spend time to make you say, let's walk through each principle and you tell me what's going through your mind. But Stefan, for the listener who is thinking about whether to buy the book or whether to even listen for the rest of this, tell me the top 3 principles in your mind. and then tell me why do you think that they are the most critical? Because at the end of the day, there's a law of diminishing returns, right?
Hmm.
So if someone were to, and we live in a world which is everyone's like short of time, give me the top three principles that you really believe that, hey, look, man, if you take 12 and you cannot take all 12, I get that. But if you don't take these three, you are putting your sales career at risk. And I'm a
Yeah.
huge champion for sales longevity. One of the statistics, Stefan, that blew my mind, and why I'm forcing you to share these three principles is because I really want people to exist in sales beyond the age of 35.
Mhm.
35% of salespeople leave sales by the age of 35. That's a scary statistic, Stefan.
Is it like this?
It is like this. It is
Wow,
higher. It is higher. It is
that surprised
higher.
me.
Exactly.
Hmm.
It shouldn't surprise you because if you think back very carefully and you look at the average tenure of a salesperson in any one single role, you will actually find that 20-25% will disappear after 2 or 3 years in any organization. They
Hmm.
also then disappear after 2 3 years in another organization because sales is not, they move from company to company thinking there's a holy grail. And you know, Stefan, and
Yeah.
you said it eloquently, at the end of the day, consistency, the why matters. And if you're not consistent, and if you haven't got, you can do anything you want to do in ice hockey, but darn it, if you're not in the gym 5 times a week, if you don't have the guns, as you put it, right, if you don't have the right equipment, if you're not fast on your feet, this is so. When I was looking at the statistics, I looked at 3 or 4 different reports. Stefan, the number is actually more than 40%. But because
Hmm.
35 by 35 sounds sexy, I stick with 35 by 35. Okay. Now,
Yeah. Yeah.
Stefan, what are those three principles? Now, you take your time and just walk me through the top three principles that you really want to share. Get into any amount of detail that you want because I really think this is a very valuable conversation. And I will pick up wherever I hear something that I would like to debate, argue, or get more expansion on. But I would
Yeah.
like you to give our listeners three principles that you really want them to leave from this conversation today.
Yeah. I mean, there is a reason why I put consistency as number one, and I think that is my number one. And here I don't need to think, because if you do not do something consistently, really, day in, day out, day in, day out, when a deal, when you become used to, or you become used to the process, and you start being sloppy, you're skipping steps that are necessary. No, consistency, the small things every day, good habits, get rid of the bad habits, good habits. But that only happens with consistency. If you don't have consistency, forget everything. If you feel,
I really like that. I like what
if
you're
you
saying
really
there.
like, if you really know yourself, okay, and you know that you can't be consistent, I really tell you, do not buy my book. Don't, because that everything is literally on that fundament. There's no way around it. But for the other two, I think the second one that I have is active listening. I think that is one of the most undervalued and underestimated, but so important things. If you do not listen, you don't hear. There's a lot of salespeople that
I think I like that. If you
that
don't listen, you do not hear. You're
you
right.
don't.
Even it's very powerful, especially for discovery, right? It's one of the most fundamental processes. And if you are discovery yapping one way,
It's not only discovery. It's literally this discovery is one thing, but there are so many nuances, little breaks in voice, little voice up and down, where you think, oh, that person is not telling me the truth. There's something else in the background.
that, yes, correct.
So all those things, but that only happens when you active listen, and don't talk. I mean, in my book, I always also compared it with dating. If you're single, I'm
Yes,
not, I'm married, but um, when I was single, I had my dating phase, and I could even measure my success in dating if I was listening, asked a question, listened,
you're right.
then
I
it was straight away, went to the next date and the next date. Yeah, she wanted to see me again, and but here comes again what I'm always preaching. Next step, next step, next step. I would not you would not go out of a date where I listened nicely
correct.
without the next step. So
And
that is active listening in my parents. Yeah.
I do. We will get to the third one, but there's something
Hmm.
you said, and I want to acknowledge this. Stefan, if I go back to my own career in selling, you will be surprised. And I'm actually very surprised. The two things that I would argue I did very badly was consistency, right? Consistency, and my boss actually explained it to me very well once. And he simply said to me, that Deepak, look, you know your numbers better than we do, right? To make X amount, you need to have this much coverage, rule of thumb, right? To get
Yeah.
that, you know that you have to call six people to maybe get one meeting and so on and so on. And sometimes you have to call the same guy six times over 6 weeks to get into his diary. So the question he asked me was, have you got a number in mind as to how you need to? And I said to him, no, not really. I just pick up and I start. And he said, what do you mean you just pick up and you start? I said, he says, okay, do you do that regularly every day? And I said, well, depends. Sometimes I get 6 dials, sometimes I get 20 dials. And he looked at me and he said to me, that doesn't sound like you're consistent. I said, of course I'm consistent. I'm dialing. He says, no, 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 no. Consistency is not being present. Consistency is also doing the things that matter at the point you're present. And I was like, I get his point now. It took me, I would say, 4 years of wasted selling until this man came along and said something that was so important. That is, consistency is not just the fact that you are present. Consistency also that you're consistent in what you're supposed to be doing in that presence. If you need to do 30 dials and you can't say that you did 20 or 10 and therefore it's a check. He says it's semi-consistent. I was like, okay, fine. And I now active listening is still one of the biggest issues for me. Even now, Stefan, if you think about it, I'm talking 50% of the time, whether this is supposed to be about you, right? And I think this is the power of these type of conversations. I always tell, especially young salespeople, right? They don't know what to say because they just don't know how to sell, right? So they typically start doing filler stuff.
Mm,
And when you're doing filler stuff, you're actually at the lowest point of active listening. And you really need
exactly.
to up your game. So if we were to now allow you, sir, after that little bit of a pontification on my part, what would the third one be? I'm leaning in now because you've got two of my top three, and I'm scared
Yeah.
that the next one you're going to give me is going to be my third weakness that I'm still working on. Tell me, sir.
Um, I think honesty. Honesty is my third one, because if you bullshit yourself and you keep on bullshitting yourself, oh, my pipeline is brilliant. Oh, I have the next step. Oh, that was a brilliant conversation. And you're just not honest. Did I get the next step? Did I get the real pain point? Did I base my demonstration on the pain point, or was I just feature dumping? That goes also into self-reflection. After every meeting, I always told my teams, after every meeting, just reflect for 2 minutes
What
and go.
actually?
But
Yes.
honestly, and um, I think that, and I'm adding now, Deepak, you didn't ask me for that one, but I'm adding now a fourth one, because without that one,
Buy
nothing
three,
works
get
either.
one free. Go for it,
Exactly.
Stefan. Which
No,
one?
discipline, left, right, center. You need to have the discipline. As a salesperson, especially when you have good days, do your bloody prospecting. Yes, it becomes less and less and less the longer you are in the game, because you build up a universe where you step in and out. Yeah,
Fair,
but
fair.
discipline. Get the next step. Discipline. Be under control of the whole process.
And I think,
Discipline.
Stefan, there's also something I want to just remind my listeners on, right? Everyone listening is trying to now think that maybe Stefan is splitting hairs because isn't consistency like discipline? Excuse me.
Mhm.
And I would argue, Stefan, they may sound like maybe they potentially are two elements to a coin, but they may be two different coins. So I do like the fact that you squeeze the fourth one in because I think discipline is important. At the end of the day, consistency is there, but I was also lacking discipline in what I said in my example earlier, right? So I can
Yeah,
see the connect right there. Consistency is that I consistently do my calls, but discipline is making sure you do the right calls to the level of detail that's required, and I think that's important. And
yeah.
I was once listening to a Olympic level coach who was teaching
Mhm.
the Indian badminton team, and he said something that blew my mind. He says the winners are not the guys that are the best players. He said the winners are the guys that are the most consistent. They have the discipline that if I tell them, here's a coin that I'm going to put on a wall, and I want you to just smack with your the shuttle, and with your shuttle, the shuttlecock, 1,000 times just aiming for that. Just do it. He says they do it. The guys
Yeah.
that are the best players, they complain the most. And he says, then that's not going to succeed because that's not good enough. Being good in selling, he said, is not equal to winning gold medals. Gold medals requires consistency, discipline. And he threw a lot of big words out there. So I kind of agree with you. In the top three, I would nod my head gently and say, yes, those matter. And this is also another important point. The reason why I liked your book was also because I think the book actually allows people to become consistent because it actually shows it to them. What does consistency actually mean? Instead of
Exactly.
pontification, consistency is when you decide to do something, you do it. No, you actually give examples, and I really like that approach to it. But now I'm going to go a bit forward, right? We covered
Yeah.
active listening. I really like that because active listening to me is important. Now, I really want to take a bit of a digression. There's something you said earlier about the work that you do, right? And
Hmm.
when you go and get into the B2B revenue engines for these VCs and these angels and so on, right? You
Hmm.
talk about process. What do you commonly see in organizations who have kind of a bad process, a process that, how do you say this? They then try to put AI on top of it, so they're now scaling a stupid process, bad process. How do those companies that you decide to invest in operate effectively? What have you discovered that you could say is a secret sauce, guys, on a process point of view that I want to share with you? This is the type of process that gets the investments from the angels.
Hmm.
Secret, sir, please let it out. What is that secret sauce?
So there's no. I mean, what I can say is that which is very common, is I throw it now out here. I could go into the majority of companies,
Yeah,
pick a few salespeople, and do pipeline assessment.
yeah.
And I can bet with you, 50% of that pipeline is gone when I'm finished with them. And it is effect, and
Realistic.
that is almost everywhere, and that is where a lot of companies also fail. With that pipeline because they trust too many times unhonest or dishonest
This is
salespeople.
back to the honesty principle that you had earlier.
Exactly,
Honesty is a
exactly,
two. There's honesty in terms of how you approach things, but there's an honesty also in what you're saying about what your pipeline is showing. There's two elements
exactly,
to honesty. And I was actually
exactly.
going to ask you that question next, but since you breached upon it,
Yeah, it's
let,
just it comes all together, but that also comes then the framework, how good looks like, is not there. So they have, for example, they recruit people from this organization. That guy was trained on that one. That guy was trained on that one. That guy was trained on that one. The
yeah,
sales leader was trained on that one, but is only managing. He's not leading.
it's not leading. Yes.
And with that, there's you can. Therefore, my book is a simple framework. You can wrap it in you can throw it in every single company, and it's not the methodology. It's just you need to get the next step. Those are the kill factors, kill criteria
Yeah.
to get rid of a deal, and all those bits and pieces. And I think that is what we look into it. And it starts every time with a forensic look at the pipeline, what we are doing. You can't imagine what dead bodies you find in that. It's
Oh,
unbelievable. And
I
that
can
is
imagine because
gross.
I align with you, Stefan. To
So
me, what is really interesting there in what you said was, and I just want to make sure that guys on the call understand, it's not a sales methodology that you're arguing about right now,
no,
right?
no.
You're arguing about evidence that is in black and white. And if that evidence does not stand scrutiny or interrogation, then it doesn't exist, guys. And when it doesn't exist, this is where I had a South African boss who used to tell me, hey, love your forecast, Deepak. Now, let's get rid of all the sunshine and tell me actually what's happening. So I
Yeah,
said, what do you mean sunshine? He says, there's a lot of positivity in there. There's a lot of sales stage 4 or 5.
yeah,
Tell me
exactly.
why. And then once you get into it, he actually said to me, Deepak, that's not a sales stage 6. You haven't even met the decision maker who's going to sign the check yet. And until that conversation, don't you think it's in the wrong place? And then everything gets adjusted. Then you sit there realizing that you're right. You have actually been very kind that half is gone. I've had situations where 20%, 80% disappeared after
I,
a good review.
I didn't want to start. I mean, the last assignment with a Dutch company, the sales team, they came in with, I think, roughly 110 opportunities in their
Yeah,
pipeline, and they
yeah.
went out with 5.
it can be remarkable, because once you establish a couple of rules, and once everyone calibrates on those rules, and I think there's another learning here to any sales leader listening in. Stefan, the way I would argue is that when you have people with different methodologies and you don't have a concrete methodology, nor have you explained the rules of the game clearly, I also want to say something, and I want to get your opinion on this. Stefan,
Mm,
one of the single sources of angst that I have noticed, right, is the fact that I sit in a review and the sales guy starts talking about sales stage one, sales stage two, sales stage three, sales stage four. And a good leader suddenly says to him, okay, I get that. Thanks for reminding me that Salesforce has 6 stages in it. I get that. Let me ask a different question. From a customer buyer point of view, let's look at his stages. Where are you at this point? Have you understood the pain totally? And has he agreed with you that yes, you now know my pain and this captured very well? And he said, no, we're still in the process. He said, you're still in the process. And how can you be in sales stage five? Because your
yeah.
buyer metrics are just not lining up, and that's what I'm trying to explain to people. I think you got to understand, Stefan is not coming in and asking very fairly complex questions. He's actually asking questions that a good sales manager, sales leader should understand, they should be putting into place. And that's why I asked the question on process, right, Stefan?
Yeah.
Now, Stefan, when we talk about failure, would you agree that a lot of failure occurs because sales leadership has got used to asking the questions which are very nice for ride-alongs? Have you prepped for the discussion with the customer? When will you get the deal? When will they sign? Instead of really asking those questions that you are now, Stefan, being paid by the CEO to come in and ask. Is
Mm.
that is that a very prevalent behavior? Because I feel it is. What's your take on it? Where
It,
would you put the blame to? Is it sales leadership, sales managers failing the moment?
I think I would almost put it down there to the sales management. I don't want to step on anybody's toes here,
Yeah.
but I think everybody should look in the mirror and literally ask themselves, step back a bit, ask yourself, do I have a process in place that
Yes.
filters out the right or filters out the wrong opportunities? Thus, is there a process that moves opportunities through the stages? You
Yeah.
know, is there a process that I adopt to help my guys to become me? You know, and
Oh, I like that.
all
I've
those
never heard
things.
it said like that. I like that. Am I enabling the guys, or allowing them to adopt things that allow them to become me? Because your assumption there is that me represents a good leader, good results in the past, and good knowledge. So I'm going to pivot a bit here because I really like this conversation. But Stefan, we talk about discovery earlier, right? And we spoke about
Yeah,
active listening, and you actually said that active listening is deeper. Yeah, very powerful, but understand it's just discovery is just one element of it. Let's focus only on discovery.
yeah.
Stefan, if you were to look at what sellers today are doing with discovery, how do you think that they could improve that process? What is it that you've detected? Because ultimately, I believe that good discovery leads to a greater understanding of what you're doing, better matching. And I would also argue that if you've done great discovery, you've understood your client, maybe there's a better referral that comes out of it. Where do you think discovery fails? And what is your single biggest guidance to people in how to improve your discovery capability?
Yeah, I think um, I have a very clear opinion on that one. First of all, without discovery, a proper discovery, you don't have anything to show.
But
Without
kaboom.
knowing
Correct.
without knowing a pain point or
Yeah,
something,
exactly.
what are you? Are you just shooting with a big cannon on a little bird? What are you trying to do? Spray and
I like
pray?
that image.
It doesn't make any sense. I
Yeah,
think that's an attitude thing. Also a human attitude thing, because look, we are salespeople, okay?
yeah,
We
yeah.
come in, we know our product. What does the human brain wants to do? Puke out everything what it does know, everything,
Yes.
but
I
that's
want to
not the
vomit it
point.
all out. Absolutely.
Exactly. And they're waiting and waiting. I want to vomit. I want to vomit. I want to vomit. But they're not asking themselves, what can I vomit that actually makes stick? And that is really where I feel that is
It's
a
it's
it's not
it's
a
it's
misunderstanding. Is that why is not there? Why do I need a good discovery? Why do I need just one pain point that I can literally take as a hook, get a buy-in, and only show my solution, my product, my service, whatever it is, on the base
Stefan,
of that one
I
point?
really like that. I also like this very interesting thing you said, which is yes, puke, but puke what is relevant. For a second, I didn't understand you, but then this image flashed in my mind and it made me smile. And I don't know if you saw me smiling while you were talking, but birds feed their young by sometimes vomiting back the food that they have eaten. And there's a context in which they do it, correct? They vomit out too much, the little bird cannot take it in also. And I've never heard anyone explain it the way you've done before. And I think this is very important. I also latched on to something different you said. And I'm repeating this because I want the listeners to understand what you said there. You said something about you cannot just say that you've discovered one pain point and you get excited about it and you latch on to it. I think those were your words, right?
Mm.
And I can tell you right now, Stefan, I used to do the same thing also when very early in the game. Talking to customer says, this is what we are feeling. And I would say, there you go. And I would carry on and on. And then my boss took me outside and after the meeting, my boss said, hey, let me ask you a question. You walk into a bar. I said, yes, boss, because I was excited. Bar, yeah, bar. And he's like, you see six girls. You look at them and they all smile at you. I'm like, yeah. I'm still trying to figure out where he's going with this. And he says to me, that's what I felt like when you're doing your pain discovery. They smiled, therefore you got excited and you think you're going to get lucky or you're going to get married, you're going to have babies, you're going to have kids. He says, what were you doing? You were extrapolating absolute garbage. He said,
Yeah.
if six women are smiling at you, what do you check? I said, I checked to see if maybe there's another man standing next to me that they're smiling at. He says, bingo, because Deepak, you know you're ugly. And he really said that. And I'm like, hmm. But it was a very interesting way of explaining to me that, and most people, and anyone who is early in sales should actually lean in at this moment, Stefan, because you've got 2 points that I want to call out. One is do puke, but puke in a controlled manner, knowing that you're providing value and in it in context. Number
Yeah,
one.
you have
Number
to.
two, have to. Number two, and I really like what you said there was that be careful that you do not latch on to overjoy or excitement because you got to a pain situation. It may not be the right pain, it may not be the relevant pain, it may in fact be an incomplete pain, and there may be something else that comes which has a bigger impact that everyone would coalesce on. Whereas what you're talking about is it's good, but it's not that good, therefore we're going to pass on you. And you're right. I like this. This is very good. Very unique language, I must be honest with you, Stefan, because I've never had vomiting and partial vomiting discussed on my podcast before.
Sorry,
But
I'm very straightforward talking. I'm German, so
this is German. This is German.
I
I
don't sugarcoat. So, and I think you read this also in the book. I'm not sugarcoating.
Absolutely.
So
But let's talk about that. I want to
yeah.
double click on honesty a little bit more, right? Because I do like what you said that. Here we are in a profession that is completely obsessed with persuasion, right? And a lot of people would actually accuse us of manipulating. Honesty remains one of the most underrated competitive advantages in sales, and you alluded to that. But I want to also ask you honesty from a different point of view. You spoke about
Mhm.
honesty from a forecasting point of view. Are you honest with yourself? Are you holding yourself accountable? What about honesty in relationship with customers? Because I've sat in meetings where I've suddenly heard people talk about things that the product can't even do. They speak and make promises, which I would argue are side letters or arrangements. And I think that as someone who understands the due diligence language, you'll understand. You get extremely nervous when you walk in and someone says to you that we are working on this deal. Customer has a problem and we are going to solve it by doing this on the side. But wait a minute, is that in the contract? No, 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 no. It doesn't need to be because wink, wink. And you're like, talk to me about honesty in buyer-seller relationships. What has your experience been, and how do you think people can avoid falling into traps?
They just need to be honest.
No, no,
That's
I
yeah, I know,
want my
but
money back. More, more, more.
yeah, no, but look, it is the worst thing that you can do as a salesperson. Oversell. It will bite you in the backside. If it
I
doesn't
like
do
that
it
oversight.
now, it will do down the line a month, 2 months, even within the sales cycle, because it will bite you in the backside. Let's say you get away with it, okay,
Yes.
and you
Yeah.
pass that on to your account manager or the person that deals with it afterwards.
Yeah.
Latest, then it bites you in the backside, and that is just wrong. So that's one piece where I think honesty
Agreed.
is very, very important. There's another thing, and that I feel, or I would almost say that hardly any salesperson does it. When you are in negotiation, okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you there's really not that much budget, so you take bits and pieces out of the package, and the
Mm-hmm.
package becomes that small. that it doesn't bring the value. Most salespeople, I could bet, will sell nevertheless, although it's no value anymore. But I tell you one thing, if you
Yeah.
say, I'm not selling it to you anymore because the value proposition is completely gone, 8 times out of 10, I would say they find the additional budget to make it valuable to the minimum.
It's
And
this
that
this
is
is very
honesty. That
very
is
powerful.
honesty, you know?
This is very powerful, and I would, and I like the way you connected the dots there. If I understand you correctly, and I want to make sure that B2B sellers relate to this point you made there. Sometimes you get to a situation where you are thinking about, let's take the scraps and run because it will help me in my quota. But you actually don't realize that those scraps may be good for you, but they're not necessarily actually good for the customer. That's a good point. I do remember one of the biggest reasons for me leaving sales. I was one of those who left sales at age 35, by the way, Stefan, right? But I could not leave sales. I went into sales operations to start building large CRM CPQ systems, right? So when you speak the due diligence language, I relate to it because I ran a bid desk. I did deep pricing, predictive analytics. I enjoyed that process.
Yeah,
It's the fun that you just brought in about the honesty. Instead of thinking about this, it's like I get something, it goes to my quota, kaching, I'm happy. That's not the point. And there's another thing you said which I really liked. 8 times out of 10. What that means is that if you stay the course and show patience, you actually could have done better for your quota. But because you folded early, you actually hurt your quota. And you lost, I would say, because your customer at some point will actually realize, you know what, I don't think I, even if it's a fraction of what he spent, he loses more than that because there's not a linear relationship in ROI sometimes, right?
exactly.
Sometimes
Exactly.
ROI is exponential. So you have also reverse
Yeah.
engineered it backwards for you. That's a very
Yeah.
powerful point. I really like that.
It
Stefan,
is
what I really
powerful
want to
and
do,
is actually quite interesting because you take the carrot away. As a salesperson,
you have now taken
buyers
exactly,
are
you have,
not used to that. You know, buyers are used to, I want to sell, they want to sell,
and,
they want to
and
sell,
to
they
me,
want to
this is
sell.
another
You
mature
know,
pattern break. It's a mature
exactly.
pattern break, which is really powerful. Stefan, I do want to start getting into something a bit more personal, right? Let's talk about your experience in global selling.
Mhm.
You speak about trust, you speak about honesty, right? As you have worked, what aspects have you noticed are consistent around the world in all the sellers that you dealt with? What
Mhm.
did you find as something that, Deepak, you know what? They may all blow their nose in public, some of them. Some of them eat their meat this way, some eat with their hands, some burp in your face. But there's
Yeah.
one or two things that I noticed a good salesperson has anywhere I go. What is that, Stefan?
Exactly what I put earlier. Consistency, consistency,
Please.
understanding why, following the process, and that's that's why I want to emphasize this one. Is it
Yeah,
doesn't matter where in the world, a shit pipeline looks exactly the same in Shanghai, Mumbai, Chicago, and Munich. Exactly the same,
I would agree with
you
that.
know,
Yeah,
and not having a next step is the same damaging in Bangalore, in Beijing, in New York, or in Berlin.
absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
it is really the framework. You just need to put the culture around, and you can't imagine how often when I did those kind of role plays with people, or listened into client calls, or did my pipeline assessment, when it didn't have any excuse anymore, it always comes with the same. Yeah, Stefan, you're European, the clocks tick differently here in China. No, they don't. No, they don't.
It, this this is, Stefan, I think that this is a great conversation. Again, I want the B2B sellers to lean in on this one, right? Every time I've also faced this, people tell me the same thing. No, 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 Deepak, you see, in India, time operates differently. And my ex-boss, I've learned a lot from my ex-bosses, and I can give them a lot of credit. Maybe I should stop doing that. Just say, I learned. He actually said something to me. Deepak, whenever anyone talks about this localization angle to you, right? Just ask them a simple question. So, are you telling me that, and you gave a great example, are you telling me that your pipeline is different, that your approach, that there's no sunshine in your pipeline? Because that's also going to happen, right?
Yeah.
He said to me, just ask them, if I were to blindfold you and to send you into any traffic, either in Kuala Lumpur or in Bombay or in Sweden or in Chicago, If it's a highway, the probability that someone's going to smack you very hard is very high, right? He says, so gravity exists everywhere. Why do
Yeah.
you then act and behave? It says there are nuances that happen. Yes, correct. Some cultures, bribe is an issue, right? So that honesty and integrity becomes a challenge for us. Respect, understand. But I do like your answer that there's something that will always remain consistency. For me, personally, I've realized one thing consistency is actually reflected in their behavior because your behavior leads you to be consistent. You're right. Communication skills, I would argue, a great rockstar salesperson actually knows when to shut up, when to do active listening, and that is true across cultures. Of course, in some
Exactly.
cultures you always kind of like wait until the buyer finishes off and then you speak, but I actually ask myself a simple question, but isn't that what a great salesperson should be doing anyway? And that was
Yeah.
another weakness of mine, so I call it out. But I
Yeah.
have a question for you, Stefan, and I really want
Mhm.
to, I'm very focused on salespeople entering the fold, early career, 21-year-old, 30-year-old, right? Those 9 years are extremely formative. And I say
Mhm.
that because most people that leave actually tell me that they feel that they got screwed up in those formative years, right? If a new seller walks up to you, sir, and he says, hey, Stefan, I love what you do. Can you make me elite? What are the principles that you would say, master these, do this? What guidance would you give a 21-year-old where to focus on? And I know it's different because your principles we already discussed which are the top three, but now I'm forcing you to
Yeah.
tell me, would you choose differently if it were a 21-year-old starting a sales career as to which principle is the most important at that point at age 21?
No, no. But what I would, what the big advantage is, for a 21-year-old can straight away develop good habits. You know, you
I
don't
see. I see.
when you walk into a room where is experienced salespeople that
Yeah.
have developed bad habits over years to get the bad habits out and replace them with good
And
habits
yeah,
is,
yeah.
you know, you need to, even as a salesperson, you need to have a good willpower to get rid of your old habits, you know. And
And
for 21 year old, hi mate, just get good habits, understand why, and really follow the process to the T.
I
Really.
I would agree with you. Early discipline, early consistency is far more important because honestly speaking, when you are 21 years old, honesty and all that is going to happen, yes. But honesty is awesome, but if you're not doing that consistency element or not doing that, the discipline, you're in trouble. I would agree with that.
Yeah,
uh,
and then start directly a good thing. So you cannot. I don't know if you've read it. There was one stage in the meeting which I literally pointed out. Introduction. I think the most simple thing, and I saw so many salespeople waffling before they come to the
wi-
point where I think,
and
what the heck
to
is going
Stefan,
on?
what is
You
really
know?
interesting is that in your book you also had another scenario which made me smile. It is so fundamental. Where do you sit in a room? Where to
Yeah.
sit in a room? A 21-year-old, if he understands those power economics, right? I don't know,
Mhm.
ergonomic, power ergonomics, let's put it that way, right?
Dynamics.
Dynamics, which chair, which position, how to, if you're in a 2 by 2 formation, how to support you. I really thought that your book covered that very nicely, and I really want to call out that out to people. But a 21-year-old has to show the patience to survive the full 200 pages, also to benefit from it. And I want to call that out to people also. Stefan, as we start wrapping up, I want to talk
Yeah.
to you about in an AI world that we live in, right? And AI
Mhm.
is getting very deep into our DNA, into how we work. I have my personal grievances with AI. At the same time, I cannot live without AI, right, Stefan? But
Yeah.
I have become smart. I would say that 3 years ago, the way I was reacting to AI was more of greedy. Oh, yes, let it. Now I'm cautious.
Mhm.
I know what I want. I want AI to deliver what I want. I will not fall into the trap of following AI into the darkness it will take me into, right?
Mm.
Just to give you an example, I speak to salespeople and I ask them, what percentage of your LinkedIn DMs or your emails are written by AI? And I got an astounding answer, maybe 80%. Start there.
Mhm.
And I said, okay, how do you start? And when they explained it to me, Stefan, it blew my mind. It was childish. It was very childish. They're not even starting from telling it what is going on and giving proper context.
Yeah.
And then they're not even telling it what I don't want you to do. I don't want you to write generic ideas. We want to be specific. Here are 3 pain points from my last transcript. Because honestly speaking, a lot of people think that it's a lot of work. It's not. It's your customer. And by the way, Stefan, the more you use AI, the more time you'll spend on fixing the crap that AI gives you also. So in the end, you need to figure that out. One of the reasons why I liked your book was that because I actually found it pleasurable, because I think you have intentionally avoided getting into too much AI usage or using fluffy words. I did not find any fluff in your book. I acknowledge that. I got a good sense that you've actually tried to put solid stuff into it. Now, Stefan, what I want to do is ask you one final question, sir,
Yeah,
which is, if AI is so important, how do you think we're going to maintain our human capability? What guidance would you give to salespeople who are listening to you right now?
just take it as a help and don't trust it too much. You know, take it as a
You know,
help to give you
you take the money
more.
out of this, Stefan. More,
Yeah.
more, more.
No,
I
it's
like that.
to be honest, for me, AI is a great help for sales. Don't get me wrong. You
Yeah,
know, all the preparation, all that stuff, even follow ups and all. But it can be a shitload of AI slop if you
you're right.
do not be
Yes.
careful. And people get lazy and complacent. And that is the biggest danger. I caught myself with that one, you know, and I see the
Same
danger
here. I'm
now.
guilty as well. I'm
I'm
guilty
not,
as well.
I'm reading every single word. Um, and that is the biggest danger. Will it replace sales? Never in a million years. People by people. And that's all even more important. You need to listen is exactly the same important,
I
especially
have,
whilst we are drifting
I do
more
have
off, you know?
one more question for you because of what
Yeah,
you just said. When I was reading your book, I actually saw that, and I was going to ask you. You wrote there, "People buy people," and I was going to ask you, is that a typo? Isn't it supposed to be "people buy from people"?
no,
But
people by
there's
people.
a reason why you said that. Could you elaborate a bit? People
Yeah,
buy people. People buy from people. I actually felt like I an editor to tell you, you forgot the from in there. But Stefan,
no,
I just heard you, and I now see what you were trying to say. I really would like you to share what is people
yeah.
by people from your perspective, and then we wrap it up.
Yeah, no, people by people is literally if you don't like a person, the likelihood that they buy from you
It's
is far lower,
diminishing
especially
right
when
rapidly.
you go against the competition, and that is as simple as that. So, but therefore, I don't know if you have seen, for example, in the discovery, I also changed the order. Instead of company, I changed it start with the person because
Person,
people
what's in it for
buy
you? What is your
exactly.
personal angst coming
People
from it?
buy people. Start with the person because people like to talk about themselves as well. So
Which
with
is
that,
true.
I'm going back into the dating. You get far more information out of talking just to the person
Yes,
than when you start with the company because it automatically comes to the company. But you
I'm
start with the person and
I'm with you.
people by people, like with dating, you ask the question, you listen, and then he
As you
wants to marry you or she.
as you
You never
say
know,
that,
you know.
as you say that, Stefan, I go back to my boss who said to me, just because they smile at you, you're getting excited, right? He would then also say, okay, so fine, you got excited. What are you going to do to establish whether that smile was reasonable or not? And that's what back to good discovery. Now, what would you say to them? And as you said, if you are having the right conversation and if you are finding that spark, that either leads to the next date or it
Mhm.
leads to clear understanding that you are going home alone today, Deepak. That is also life. Great. We do that, we part
Yeah.
ways as friends. Talking of parting, Stefan, we are nearly at the 55-minute mark. You will not believe it.
Wow, that
Stefan,
was fast. It was fun.
that was fast. I really enjoyed this conversation. As we wrap up, I just want to call out to people. Stefan, could you lift up your book one more time before we say goodbye?
Yeah,
Stefan's book is Sales is Not Rocket Science, but a Simple Art. It is available for pre order. It is releasing on the 30th. At the end of this month, this book is out.
exactly.
This podcast most likely will also be released at the same time. I have got a electronic copy of the book. I've enjoyed it. Stefan, I wish you all the best with the sales. And honestly speaking, I think this is a great lead magnet for you. I would say to your customers, to your people that want to know more about your work, just use the book as an opportunity to actually figure out what makes Stefan tick and why he should get your love and affection and dineros. All right, Stefan? I leave it at that. Thank you very much,
Thank you
Stefan,
very
for
much for
being with
having me,
me.
Deepak.
My
Much
pleasure.
appreciated.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye
Bye,
bye. Bye.
listeners.